Hello, beauties. So, today, talking about relationships, we're talking about co creating relationships. Relationships can be challenging, especially in the awakening journey. So much goes on in the awakening journey, wouldn't you say? There's so much integration, there's so much processing, there's so much uh, surfacing of the subconscious programming and old wounding and old trauma. And sometimes in the awakening journey, we don't handle it super gracefully or even know what is happening at the time and until retrospect happens. So relationships, they can be challenging. And I am grateful and blessed enough to have a relationship I've had in my life for a marriage I've had in my life for 18 years now. And we've been together 19. And it's shown me so much. It hasn't always been like a smooth road. There are many, many times that, you know, maybe it would have been safe to leave. But there's something in my heart that knew that this was the time to work this out. And I'm really glad it did because I have a lot to say about this now, about sticking with something. The thing is about relationship, guys, if we think about the law of vibration, right? If we are vibrating a certain vibration, we are going to give that vibration out. And when we give that vibration out, um, like attracts like the vibration attracts itself. So if we are in a relationship that is bumming us out or we're not getting along with, there's something in us that we're mirroring out in that relationship. Every relationship, the way I see it, is a co-creation and is mirroring something that you get to wake up to or resolve. So how I love to use relationships, whether it's a partnership in marriage or whether it's a child and mother or parent, or whether it's a work relationship, whatever it is, if you're in it, you're mirroring to the other person something within you and they're reacting from it and it's alive in them as well. So these two co-creators come together to work out and agree to have this awakening together, I think. And so it's not easy going through everyone's subconscious old programming that also triggers yours. So it's this perfect storm. But when we get into trouble is pointing the finger, right? We're pointing the finger saying them. They did this, their behavior's awful, or this is happening. They're not looking at their part. So a lot of times when someone's doing this, pointing the finger, guess what's happening? It really means take your finger and it's this. So if someone is blaming, most likely it's actually something that they're part of. And that's hard to hear. That's hard to hear. I've done it in my marriage. Like he's doing this and he's doing that and he's. And I got wise to that. Both my husband and I did. And instead of like arguing it out, what we would do is just go our separate ways and work it out on our own. We would really do the work here. What's going on? What am I aware of? Why am I attracting this? What's happening? Asking a lot of questions and clearing a lot of energy. And now, like 18 years later, I mean, my gosh, like we have the most loving, blissful, allowing, magical relationship right now. But it was not like that all the time. I went through a lot of doubt, a lot of questioning. And it wasn't until I really came home to here, and took all the responsibility for the relationship out here, did this change. Now, I just had that same experience happen with my son. He was 17 and shit was hitting the fan. It was awful. Our relationship with our son was crumbling. He was so mean. He was like a caged animal saying things like so mean, like any parent would just crumble over. And it got so bad that I finally just had to say, oh, okay, I'll look here. And when I did, I found some old wounding and trauma that I was still holding and reacting and reacting and parenting from. And once I cleared that up, and once I let go of the judgment of the choices he was making and just held space for him, our relationship got better. He actually became loving toward me. He actually apologized. He actually was like, I love you so much. You're my role model. Like, these are the things he came back and said. But I had basically a wall up, and we're playing out a certain vibrational dynamic in that tension and meanness. And once I cleared my end up, and once he got a little bit of space from that, from what was happening, we both came back in a different vibration. We both cultivated a love vibration in our relationship, and that's what we started to mirror back to each other. Guys, if you are having trouble in a relationship and you're pointing the finger on someone else, it's time to take that finger and point it back to you. The only thing you have control over is you. So if you're noticing that you're talking about your relationship, you're talking about that person in an angry way, in a blameful way, that's your work to do. That's yours to do. And okay, so let's take this to the next level here. How do you do the work? Well, I like the power of a question. I like sitting quietly and asking the question, what is this? What's going on in this relationship? And then watching the awareness that comes up. How old am I being when I'm in this relationship? That's another good question. So when I'm face to face with that person that I'm having a hard time with, I can ask, how old am I being here? Because a lot of what we're reacting from is old trauma. And when we really realize that and we look at the old trauma, like hold it, right? And the thing is, guys, reacting from old trauma sometimes isn't even trauma with the person that's in front of us. It's somehow they're representing an energy from that old trauma. So with my son, I have old trauma from being raised by really traumatized parents, So my parents were traumatized and parented in a certain way that kind of traumatized me in a way that I reacted and reacted in a way that I was going to parent in a whole different way that kind of tilted the balance way off in a whole other direction. And I had to take a look at my reactivity and that wounding, and I had to resolve it. And the way I resolved it was, one, bringing it up and being aware of it. Oh, that's what that is. And then what I like to do is I use my voice and I sing to it. I know that sounds funny, but I entrain it. If you look this up, sound healing, in sound therapy, there's something called entrainment. And you can take that, you can take a sound and entrain that wounded vibration once you're aware of it, and you can entrain it to a higher frequency, and you can resolve it and dissolve it. And that's what I did. But you can also do this through Reiki, through other kinds of energy work, through just being with it, offering it to God, to dancing it out. However avenue comes to you and lights you up, but that energy needs to move again. So everything is a frequency. So that energy of trauma and wounding and reactivity is just an energy that kind of got stuck in place, stuck in time. And energy wants to keep moving. So we got to keep moving the energy, okay? And sometimes anger is a way to move it, because a lot of times disempowerment and fear and grief, and it's lower frequency than anger. So sometimes we use anger to kind of put a fire under us and to get really angry, and we get a little mean, and we get some power behind us. And that's great, but just know that that's not the end. Use your anger to get you to the next thing, and then blame. Then you get anger and then you start blaming people. That's a higher frequency too. And that's awesome. That's energy moving, okay? But then we don't want to stay in blame. We want to go up to, negativity and then hopelessness. And then we want to get into positivity. So we're going up the scale and we always want to keep this moving. Now, if you're awake and you really like this way of processing and stuff, you might not have to, you might be able to go to anger, back up, up to hopefulness. But it's really helpful, and I mention it a lot, is the emotional guidance system by Esther Hicks, through Abraham. And it's this scale that shows which emotions go up the scale in vibration. And that's why anger is okay for a little while, because it's more empowering than powerlessness and grief. But you don't want to stay in anger, and blame and revenge is actually a higher vibration than anger, believe it or not. So we want to keep going up. We want to keep the energy moving until we're back at our natural state of just holding space of unconditional love and ecstasy and joy. That is our natural state of being. So if you have a relationship where you're really angry, and you have a relationship where you're really shut down to a person, and get the energy moving. Okay, you got some work to do. Okay, it's okay, you're holding some boundaries with blame, shame, and anger, but keep moving. Okay, because the idea is to get up to your unconditional loving self. And when we talk about forgiveness in a relationship, forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It is a vibrational gift you give to yourself. Yes, the other person in the co-creation with you benefits from it, but forgiveness is actually an energetic gift you give to yourself. Now, a lot of people are like, how can you forgive this person? They were so mean to you. They've done such awful things to you. Holding a grudge and holding in non-forgiveness is actually doing more harm to you. So I'm going to say it again. Forgiveness is a vibrational gift to you doing the forgiving. And yes, the person being forgiven gets the highlight reel of that. But guys, it's all about your vibrational alignment. And the person you're in relationship with is there to show you whether you're in what you're in alignment with. Isn't that cool? And then, how do we grow out of relationships? So personally, I would never leave a relationship unless you feel like you're just expanding out of it. And when you're expanding out of it, you are in your lightness, you are in your glory, you are in your ecstasy, and you just realize we're just not a match anymore. But you can still, say hi once in a while and things like that. You're not triggered. When you find yourself triggered in a relationship, that's the time not to leave. And if you're strong enough to really stay with it and do the awakening work and do the deep healing work, once you reach that beautiful place of unconditional love for yourself and for other, then you can say, I think I want to experience something different now. Because once you leave a relationship when it's still in its healing phase, you're still vibrating that. And guess what? You're just going to go to the next relationship, and that mirror is going to follow you in the next person. Now, maybe it's not as much history, and maybe it won't be as intense as you work it out. That's possible. That's possible. So, this mirror could be really intense, and it just could be just too much on your nervous system to handle. And that could be. So when you go to the next person, you're still going to have, notice how the same kind of situation and people keep showing up in your life. It's a vibration. It's a vibrational alignment. But perhaps in this scenario, it's intense, but not like stopping you in your tracks. So perhaps you'll work it out that way. But the vibration the vibrational alignment's going to get worked out some way or another. And your relationships are those mirrors to show you where you need to do the inner work. So is this making sense? Let me know in the comments if this is making sense. All right, beautiful people. I wish you so much joy and awakening with your relationships. Please remember and note that your relationships are a co-creation. It's not always this. We got to take that finger and put it right here, whether it's a relationship with your children or your partner or your parents or your work, they're doing you a service. And come back, sit on your meditation pillow, walk in nature, and ask the relationship, what is this showing me? What is this about? How do I grow from this? How old am I being here? Yeah. All right, beautiful people. Enjoy your relationships today. Namaste.